Victor Ochen is the founder and executive director for African Youth Initiative Network. Born in northern Uganda, he spent 21 years of his childhood as a refugee in the camps where he survived on 1 meal a day for over 7 years. He grew up amidst violent conflict that displaced over 3 million people, where 60,000 plus children were abducted and forcefully recruited as child soldiers, including his own brother. He grew up to become a lead example on tolerance and nonviolence activism, and now is creatively working to address the root cause of conflict in Africa. His organization has so far provided reconstructive medical repair to over 21,000 war victims of rape, mutilation, gunshots, etc. Forbes magazine named Ochen as one of the 10 most powerful men in Africa in 2015. He is the first Ugandan and the youngest ever African nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize. Please welcome Mr. Victor Ochen onto the stage. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Will you be speaking from the podium?
Yeah, let me
Yeah?
go there.
Okay, and if we can give him the, yeah, go ahead.
Thank you very much, Soel, for a very generous introduction. And thank you, everybody, for the opportunity to meet today. It's my first time to the kingdom, and I feel honored, delighted that I had the opportunity to do this now. As per introduction, I'm from Uganda. I never dreamt I would be in a place called Bahrain, but it's my delight to be here today. But also most important, Middle East and Africa are close to one another, not only in distance, but also in the history and perhaps the shared vision and the future for peace and stability. It makes me privileged to have been honored today in this beautiful city to be the recipient of the award for 2019. I receive the award with great honor, and I dedicate the award to the people who has inspired my journey to where I am today. It's my joy to find that in a magnificent city, in a well-organized event like this, I can, on behalf of people whose lives have changed mine, I can receive the most prestigious award representing them. To the government of this country, I'm excited, I'm glad, I'm privileged to be in a beautiful city surrounded by good intentions and good people. Thank you so much for making sure I am here. I'm happy to share with you a little bit of my story, but I've so far learned so much from the discussions we have held in the morning to where we are to now. The theme of today could not be any better than the unreasonable thinking. The world we are in, the environment we are in, and the determination we are all focused at makes the subject matter, the theme, the most fitting for this era, for this generation. And also knowing that in the room, we are discussing together with the young people, the new generation of global citizens who shares not only borders, but they share the passion for humanity. I'm very happy to be part of this. The world as it is messed up. Messed up by who? Messed up by us, humanity. We have turned against each other. As if that is not enough, we have also turned against nature. But to solve the world problem will not require very smart people. It will require all of us. And that's why when we think outside the box, when we unreasonably think, that's where solution will come. And I'm very happy that we are having the subject of this nature right now. As I said earlier on, I come from Uganda, a country that has been through a long history of conflict. A nation that is proud and green and blessed and gifted with so much natural resources, but been torn down by human greed. Just like the rest of the continent, Africa, we are blessed with so much that we can share with the world, but also we are challenged on how much has been taken from the continent at the expense of the innocent African people. But when I come over, I'm not coming to testify how bad the environment or the situation is, but I'm coming to as a proof of what can be done, what can be possible. So, having been through eras of war, when I was a child, it was my hope to grow up to become a doctor. It was my dream to grow up to become a pilot. I thought at one point if I grew up, I would study and maybe become an engineer. But when war came, everything changed. Everything changed. My visions got amputated. Everything changed because of war. Growing up as a child, it was difficult to imagine if I would see the sunset. You might have grown in this city, in this country, not knowing what life looks like in conflict. I spent my entire childhood in conflict. For 20 years, I was in the camp. But that did not make me less human. In fact, it has inspired me to become a better person, to appreciate what life is. Because everything changed, I also had to adapt and fit to the environment, to the system. For too long, we had wondered, why are we subjected to so much pain in life? Why don't we ever see what is good about being alive? Why would we not eat food? Why would we not sleep in our houses? But the worst of the worst was, as you are hiding in the bushes, you wake up from your sleep in the middle of the night, in the dark skies of Uganda. All you could see is the bright stars navigating through the darkness that forced humanity out of their dignified housing into taking shelter into bushes. And above all, walking around for a few minutes and to find, you ask yourself, where did my brother go? The answer was, war took him away. Your mother was gone to pick up water, will never be seen, and you ask yourself, where did my mother go? War took her away. She's blown up by the landmines. The brothers are abducted and they're recruited as child soldiers. You would never see them again. It went on. We wondered, where did our sisters go? Where did our friends go? The answer was simple. War took them away. And this was a day-to-day life. This was everyday's reality. The question that kept on bubbling in my heart was, when will we ever learn? And when will we ever last? And that provoked the unreasonable thinking of when will we ever last? Because everything else has become temporary. Life was temporary. Peace was temporary. Survival was temporary. Chances of being alive the next hour was temporary. That question of when will we ever last provoked the unreasonable thinking. Today, many years then, I was 13 years old, a little young boy who was hardly eating food, fatigued with despairs of conflict, wondering when will we ever last. I took up a step to form a peace club when I was 13 years old, living in the camp. And the purpose of forming the peace club was primarily to help me talk to my fellow young men who are out of despair, who are volunteering to become child soldiers, who are being taken, who are being forced to kill, to destroy, to rape their own relatives, sometimes their own parents. And they were desperate, they were afraid, they were scared. When I formed the peace club, it was to help me convince these young men to not choose war. It was a very desperate attempt. Everybody wondered, why are you being unreasonable? You're talking about peace that you have never lived. Tell us any single day that you have lived in peace, that you're talking about peace. And I said, yeah, it might sound unreasonable, but that's the way to go. To think about what is not possible, what might not be possible, what might not look possible, but to think about, imagine if, what a wonderful world would be if we were living in peace in our community. So that made me form the Peace Club to help me confront the armed forces, both from the government side and the rebel side, who were recruiting children and taking them as child soldiers. It was a very bold move by nobody, a young man of 13 years old. But I did it because I reached a point I was sick and tired of my own suffering. And I was sick and tired of asking an unanswerable question of where did my brothers go and where did my sisters go? And it was an attempt to seek to answer the question of how long or when will we ever last? This question took me a bit of time, but I chose, it is a decision I made. It was the most unpopular move. Sometimes you have to be unpopular in order to achieve what is necessary. If you're to walk the tune of the world, you may not achieve much, or you may not be different. But if you seek to be different, if you choose to make a difference in the life of other people other than yours, you need to sometimes take unpopular move. And I did it because I felt I was tired. As fatigued as I was, I still appreciated what human life would look like. So, since then, as I appreciated the human life, challenges of life kept on bubbling on my world. Struggling with my own education, struggling with my own community, but also trying to understand what did I do wrong that I'm not getting it right. So this is the kind of thing that took me a lot of time to understand. But as I said earlier on, in order for you to be an example of what is sometimes not possible, you need to do the uncommon. Young and blossoming in my own suffering, I realized that majority of the population wanted the situation to change, but they didn't know how to get out of that situation. My peace academy, my peace building program, my peace efforts started gaining pace, even though it was very unpopular from the beginning. But because everybody wanted to be alive, and everyone wanted to appreciate the benefits that comes with life, I started getting support. The support I could get was my friends joining in to join my peace club, to start talking about peace, start promoting peace, because we were losing every day. And the big question that came was, we are not educated. We will never even be educated. And where are we? Are we dancing a dead song, or we are moving in unknown directions? Yes, it was difficult to get it right. Ladies and gentlemen, today as I talk, my small initiative that we started 15 years ago, formalized 15 years ago, that was a continuation of my 13-year-old dream. To date, has helped restored the dignity and rights of tens of thousands of war victims. We have provided reconstructive surgical rehabilitation to thousands of people whose lips, nose, ears were cut off. Thousands of women who were sexually abused finally got to see their dignity. And we are happy that our call to action was not a failed attempt. It was a right attempt at the right time. The most important thing that has been in my life, sometimes we are confronted by difficulties of life. But how do you navigate yourself when you go through hard moments? I want to say, it reached a moment when it became personal, as I was a committed peace builder, working to promote the rights of victims. I confronted the situation. There was one particular moment in my day-to-day work, talking to young people, helping them to choose peace, counseling them. I met a young man. This young man was my age mate. When he was telling me the stories of what he did when he was taken as a child soldier, he explained one particular situation that became the most trying moment in my career. He explained to me how he abducted my own brother, how he was forced to abduct my own brother, who was unfortunately missing up to now, together with my cousin. So innocently, as he didn't know, he was talking about how he took my own brother. I was confronted with a reality that I never expected I would have. I was weak to listen to him talk about how he tied my brother, how it took him, how he's missing up to now. In my mind, I was blackening out. I was wondering, what do I do to this young man who took my own brother? But something in me kept on telling me, stay calm. He was taken, he was forced to do what he did. I cut short the discussion because I wanted him to not realize that I was freaking out because he was talking about my own brother. I was weak. I told him, can we cancel the discussion? We continue the next day? He said, yes. I started driving back to town, blacking out at the same time, wondering what to do with this young man. I couldn't cry. I parked the car, I wanted to cry, I couldn't cry. I went home, I tried to sleep, I couldn't sleep. My father asked me what was going on. I said nothing, I was just tired. I made sure nobody from my family would know this boy took away our brothers. At night, I couldn't sleep. I went back to meet him the next day. I said, can we talk about what happened then after you crossed the river? What happened then? He continued with the story. I did not tell him that he talked about my brother. And then, as he was explaining more, he reached another deep end of our discussion. I couldn't tolerate it. I couldn't understand. I said, let us stop here for now. We shall continue and conclude on this story another time. When I came back for about 3-4 days, wondering what to do with him, I was weak. But something in me told me that he's a good material. He could be a young, great young man who could help so many people like you. The best I did, I employed him without telling him, and he is one of my fantastic, wonderful staffs I work with right now, and he's a very good counselor. But he does not know that he's the one who took my brother. So sometimes in life, I don't know what exists beyond unreasonable thinking. Sometimes I was wondering, did I do the right thing to decide to recruit him to work with me? But not until when I recruited him. I was not at peace with myself, and I was not at peace with him. Accepting the reality, accepting the truth I was confronted with, gave me opportunity to admit who I am. So, ladies and gentlemen, sometimes I do think that despite my challenges, my suffering of losing family members, I was never too hard to love. I was never too hard to love. I never ran out of love. And I'm also aware that the conflict I went through did not give me permission to hate anybody. In fact, it gave me permission to realize what life looks like beyond hate. If I chose to hate, I would be revenging. I would be picking up the arms to fight, to kill, to do what? But I said, I chose love. And in a way, in the fractured world that we exist, it is our role to make hope and restore dignity of humanity. It's our responsibility to see humanity in everyone. And I know I'm talking to young people from Bahrain. What a great country, great government, kingdom. You might have not been through the worst of the worst in life. It's a privilege that you should be grateful about. You are exploring into the world of technology, into the world of entrepreneurship. You are coming up as the champions. But all I can say is, when you look up in the skies of the beautiful land of Bahrain, what do you see? Perhaps at night you see the glittering stars, you see the moon, you see the sun. When you look across the sea, across the water, you find people coming all over from different parts of the world to this great country. Why? It is because of magnetic good leadership. It is good leadership that attracts people home. Good leadership will always attract good people. As your country is a star in the region, all I can say, it is through your entrepreneurship, through your support that you will make this country the brightest star in the sky. You have a responsibility to do so. Use your privileges to spread hope, to spread opportunity, and above all, stand for what is right. No matter the outcome, we have to stick to doing what is good and good for humanity. As I conclude, sometimes in life we are called to do good things, but we may not know how to do good things. We may not have access to, but if you have knowledge, it might not be you who is going through that hard situation. It might not be your neighbor. It might not be your countryman, but another country that you know might be going through hardship that they could be lowered a bit by your support. Give the best you can to the world. Stand out for what is good and what is good for humanity. We may be asking the question again, with all this technology coming in, where are we in the picture? If I ask myself, I think I will stick with humanity. No matter what happens, I want to make sure there's a human face of every technology. There's a human face of every development. There's a human face of every natural resources. A country like yours would use your oil for the good of development, for the good of the nation. You're using it to fuel humanity, to fuel dignity, to fuel opportunity. Meanwhile, in other nations, they're using oil as a reason to fuel war. This is where you stand unique. You need to carry forward, carry the flag for humanity, carry the flag for justice high up. Meanwhile, for the future, no way we can pretend that we don't need one another. We do need one another. I'm standing as an African. I'm representing majority of many Africans who may never have opportunity to see the kind of development we have in this country. But it's our time to build relationship, cooperations, and establish networks and opportunity so that we can learn and work together. The question of how long must it take before we know too many people have suffered? That question can be answered now. We have the opportunity through technology, through development, through all the support of good leadership and good governance in our neighborhood and in our country to make sure that we answer that question. How long must it take before we know that too many people have died because of bad leadership? Too many people have suffered. Too many refugees in the world. My community that has been through war for over 20 years currently is hosting 1.5 million refugees from neighboring countries. My work, I said to somebody somewhere that it's not my responsibility to criticize warmongers, but it is my responsibility to build and raise peace builders. That is the best way for me I can respond and revenge in the world I have now. Why do we see people suffering? Why do we do nothing when we see people suffering? And why don't we stand up for human? I just don't know why. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Beautiful. Lovely. Have a seat, sir. Grab your mic, Victor. Grab the mic. I apologize. I made you grab the mic, and I just realized there's one here. But
We can have two.
We can have two. They can hear us better. That was very, very inspiring and very educational. And really, you know, as a Arab Gulf citizen, when I hear stories like you, it just makes me realize how spoiled we are and how fortunate we are. You know, we complain when the car doesn't start in the morning. We complain when our iPhone doesn't have enough energy, or that we don't have enough, the newer iPhone. And really, when you hear stories like yours, it's just absolutely inspiring. It's mind-boggling and something we can't relate to, and hopefully we never have to relate to. You said something important. You said we need to see the humanity in everyone. And you kind of touched on this, which is sometimes good people do terrible things.
Yeah.
How does that happen? How does a good person do something terrible? And how do you deprogram this person?
How do we deprogram a good
But before that, how can someone decent do? You mentioned that they cut off ears, they cut off hands, and you know the nose, even the lips.
Yeah.
Someone who's committed such an atrocity, but fundamentally you see their humanity. How can they come? How do they become so evil, and then how do they come back?
I think there's no clear answer to that as to why and what motivates somebody to be that cruel, to do such unjust terror on fellow human. But all I can say is I've been fortunate in life that I have witnessed the best part of humanity, and I've also learned and I've seen the worst part of humanity. The cruelty that we administer sometimes on one another, whether it be physically, politically, emotionally, or spiritually, it's sometimes baffling. I don't understand why. Where do people get the courage, the audacity to torture at best, to destroy the dignity, the human nature that for somebody that you did not create? I don't understand. But unfortunately, it's a situation that I was subjected to. I witnessed every single day of my life.
Did you see it with your own eyes?
Yes.
Some of this cruelty?
I witnessed. I survived.
Wow.
And I spent my entire childhood surviving war, witnessing all the terrors. Now I feel I've also spent so far my adult life healing the war wounds. So that's why I feel my last remaining life I should spend on preventing war injuries.
On a practical level, I'm just curious, I mean, why this cruelty? Was there a practical reason behind it? What was the purpose of mutilating so many people? And was it to terrorize? Was it just for the sake of, was it ethnic? Why was it done?
Usually it's done to inflict an enormous amount of pain on individuals, but also retaliations on why did you not support their gruesome movement to kill and rape and do what. I grew up in several camps, but it was a population of over about 4 million people where we grew up together. And then the worst would be, you ask, why would somebody think of taking a 10 years, 8 years old child. There's nothing more painful than the parent to see that the little baby is being taken away from Imoa. So our biggest fear was if our parents who had gone to fetch water would come back home alive. We grew up afraid that our parents would be taken away from us. Also, our parents were sad that they're afraid that we would be taken away from them. And this was the day-to-day, year in, year out. If it was maybe done for a year or for months, you could say the government was taken unaware. They were not able to counter. But it went on. Days became weeks, weeks became months, months became years, into decades. So you ask, is this an error? Is this an initiative? Is it a project? So this is why it left everybody wondering. Because if it was somehow a mistake or failure on one side, it would have been countered. But the worst also, people felt betrayed by international community. Why would the international community allow all this suffering for all these years? It's very difficult to be peaceful in an environment of war. It takes a lot of power, maybe strength, not power. It takes a lot of strength to resist the urge to strike back, especially when you're being pricked, when you're being attacked, when you're being denied everything beautiful about life. My first time to wear shoes, I was 14 years.
Wow. I
never wore shoes, I never owned one, we didn't have anything. But after 14 years, that's when I bought my first shoes. Even I became a shoe cobbler, even when I did not have shoes. And I raised my own money to buy my shoes. And that was a unique experience. The world, but since then I've been wearing shoes non-stop, so I have not stopped since I was 14 years.
Fantastic.
So the thing is, how do we give smiles in the face of the teary faces? It only comes when restored sense of dignity is achieved.
What, you have 2 daughters, I believe?
Yeah, I do have twin girls, lovely twin girls.
2 years old, I believe you told me.
Yeah.
How are you raising them so that their generation don't go through this? What are you doing differently?
It is my wish and it's my prayer and my hope that I am the last generation to have gone through what we went through. And I am the first generation to open up a new door of opportunity where we don't need to die trying to survive. We need to live. Every citizen should be given opportunity to live a life of dignity. So I hope my children would learn this as the history, that our parents went through this, but through their struggle, they brought an end to that kind of turmoils. And they opened up new doors that would help us see, because it's the disaster that I would never wish for anybody else.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah.
Do we have any questions from the audience? If we can raise our hands and if we can have some mics ready. We have a gentleman there. His hand is up enthusiastically. Again, if we can have someone with the mic. Can you put up your hand again, sir, for me? Good. We don't seem to have mics again. They seem to be all here. If someone can grab a mic.
And can we smile a bit, all of us? Come on, is it illegal to smile in this country?
You've depressed them all. Is this like...
I apologize for that. But now we can smile. It's okay, okay?
You've moved them so much, they don't know what to say.
I think smile is very good. It's good to smile because it feels good. Eh?
Yeah, absolutely.
If you try it, you can understand what I'm talking about right now.
Yes, the question?
Hi, Victor. Very, very touching. I really admire your generosity, your kindness, your forgiveness is amazing. I'm extremely touched. But I have one question. Where did you receive and how did you receive your education?
So I actually know that this is a long story, so you need to give him the short version. Otherwise, we'll say we heard the story. So if you can put it in a short answer, I'd appreciate it, because we heard it's like an hour-long story, which we don't have.
But it's important. It's important. So I'll tell you why. Because we've been hearing about.
Because we're gonna cry even more if you hear how amazing his education story is. It's absolutely. So not taking anything away from your question, Abdussalam. I just happen to have heard the answer to this. So Victor, my only request is yes, answer it, but as succinctly as you can.
I'll answer it like an educated person. That doesn't take so long.
Okay.
Okay, thank you so much. I am happy that you recognize my education, but I would also admit that I'm probably the most uneducated person in this room. So, in one way or another, yes, Uganda's education has got 7 years of primary schooling, right? But I went to only 3.5 years out of 7. I skipped the rest because of too much war. And I made sure that I went to primary school in my country, and then struggling to buy myself scholastic materials, the books, the pens. I paid myself. I'm one kid who paid himself in school from the beginning to where I am. My parents couldn't afford to buy us food, so there was no money to buy a pen. So I burned charcoal my entire childhood to raise money to pay myself in primary school, through secondary school. But also, I studied in Africa. I did not go anywhere. I never got an opportunity of scholarship from the government, from anybody, when I needed it the most. But now that I speak a little bit of good English, everybody gives me opportunities, go study here, go study. I don't need all that. I don't need it. I needed it then, and nobody came in. I navigated my way out. And now, if I wanted to be a PhD, I would be holding PhDs, but I don't need to be a PhD, all that to build peace in Africa. So I studied in Africa, I studied in Uganda. I went through the worst of the worst schools because I had to pay myself while burning charcoal, raising money on my own. My parents wanted to support, but they didn't have $1 even in a month. So
Yesterday you said that you needed to raise funds for a certificate examination.
Yeah.
How much did that examination cost?
It was $12.
$12, and you didn't have $12. And so you had to ask your teachers to help you raise the $12 for you to pay the entrance exam. Is that correct?
Yes, I had to do that. And it was not that I couldn't raise money to pay $12, but I burned charcoal. I cut charcoal to trees to burn charcoal. But as soon as I set it on fire, the thousands of rebels came and swamped my charcoal burning area, and everybody took off. We nearly got killed, and there were so many things. When we tried to save the charcoal, we found so many guns just to realize they had planted landmines all over our charcoal burning spot. So we lost that charcoal entirely, which was supposed to help me pay my examination fee. So this is the kind of experience that I went through. But my question was, what did I do so wrong that the rebel would even, in addition to displacing us and making us suffer, would even plant landmines next to the charcoal? Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, and the story, Abdul Salam, goes on and on. If you get the chance to sit with Victor, he says how he went back into the night to guard his charcoal so he could sell, and so it's a lovely story attached to that. It's just, you're the unreasonable thinker's thinker. You're just remarkable. I'd like to have one more question, please. We have it from John Sinai here. I know not everyone will get the chance to ask Sabah. If this doesn't take too long, I'll take a question. Otherwise, you can do a one-on-one with him.
Can we take also from John, a lady after John? From a lady as well?
All right. Yes, you're right. Okay, so he did it for you. So he wants gender equality.
I'm happy with ladies first, to be honest. Why don't you go ahead?
I know her very well.
Oh, do you?
I've known her for 10 years or 12 years. She's like my sister, so I can tell her to just wait. It's okay.
Okay, great. Right. I've been hugely touched by your story. I mean, we had lunch yesterday together, and I've been thinking about your journey so much, and has made me so grateful about my journey. My question to you is, I haven't seen somebody or have met somebody with your experience who has come out of it with so much love and so much elegance in the way you hold yourself and the way you speak about it. It seems as though the anger is not there. Pretty similar to Nelson Mandela, to be honest. And I find the same energy from you. What are you doing in as far as getting into leadership in Africa, and how desperately we need you to be leading the way? What are your plans, and what are you doing, and how can I help?
That's a good question.
I think you're a strategist, right?
Yes, that's good. Thank you so much for a very good compliment. And yes, I agree. Hate is so exhausting. Anger is such an emotional cancer that it does not consume the person you are angry with, but you who is going through that moment of anger. So I found it really difficult, and it blurred my world when I looked at everyone as my enemy. I think also I came to realize that not everyone who attacked you are your enemies. Sometimes you need to dig the best in them. I know every human has got their back and forth sides, but I'm not focusing on how bad everybody is. I'm focusing what good can you get out of every one of us. So to me, it's about emotional healing. If I allowed myself to be consumed with this emotional anger, and I don't think I was drowning in my own fatigue of despair. And I said, let me swim out of this fatigue. Let me jog on my way out, and I could see some light at that. In terms of leadership in Africa, yes, we need to step forward. We can't keep saying politics is only for bad people. It's because we allow bad characters to consume political space, and that's why the extremist takes charge, because we, the good people, fails to step forward. What I would say is, it is very important to step forward, not because you want to win only, but because you want to learn and improve a lot already. Because even those those who are now bad leaders, who are once very promising young Africans, who are then very good, all of a sudden they turn around. So, but we want to say, can we plant in the right seeds of leadership, of tolerance, of inclusion? Let go the tribal, tear down the tribal barriers and build walls of democracy to shield the citizens, as opposed to creating, walls of hatred and tribalism. This is what is causing, we are seeing every new day, Africans dying in the sea trying to cross to Europe. This is what could have been avoided. So I think, yes, we need to step forward, but above all, come together while we are planting the right seeds, leadership based on reconciliation, on unity. We need unity, peace, and reconciliation. These are the three pillars of development that we need in Africa. And I think it's not something to do easily, but it's the best opportunity to try it. And when can we do that? If we worked together 50 years ago, Africa would be further than Middle East right now. But what will happen if we work together for the next 50 years? We'll even be better than Middle East. So when do we start it?
Now, let's
Today.
not get carried away. Okay.
Thank you.
I want you to make me a promise.
That?
When you are the president of Uganda, you come back to visit us in the Unreasonable Thinking Summit again. Is that?
Thank you for the blessing. I will be here even if I'm the president or not, no problem.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Saba, our last question, we'll have to take it from Saba. Just raise your hand and then we'll have to wrap it up because we're a little bit behind schedule. I know there are some questions. Victor will be happy to speak to anyone. He loves smiling and speaking to anyone, so he'll be available offline. But
I'm
I've
sleeping.
got to bring this train back on time a little bit, as much as I can. Saba is a former Falakonian, has been involved with me for too long that both of us care to remember. She was involved in the previous 2 Unreasonable Thinking Summits, and she's now running her own startup gaming studio. Go ahead, Saba.
First of all, Victor, it was inspirational to hear you and very sobering. I want to ask on an individual level, for a person like me or anyone in this room, what can we, since we talked about humans being increasingly connected, what can we in this situation do something for someone who has been in your situation in the past on an individual level or even on a corporate level? What can a person like me do for a person? How can we restore dignity? How can we be a part of this change?
Thank you so much. That's what makes women unique. They ask a question that is very human and they look at it, what can I do now? Not about politics of the world. Okay, thank you so much for asking that.
Did you see what just did to you, John?
And I think it's a good thing to think about. Yes, at individual level we can contribute, but also it's about not supporting our emotion, but supporting our vision. The vision we have now is how do we build an infrastructure for peace building. Where I come from, right now in northern Uganda, we have a population of about 13 million people without a single CT scan. Wow. 13 million people without a single CT scan. And yet we are conducting surgeries. We have to get the imaging done. It's too expensive to afford. Population cannot even afford privately. But now we are saying we have, to build a peace academy, we're also building the hospital we need to acquire. If there would be any way that all of us in this room would reach out to our relatives and around the world to just help us get one imaging machine, it would save thousands of lives. X-ray machine or whatever we can do, we can reach anybody, even if secondhand, would help us do something. So that would be a very practical support I would call upon. But of course, we can, through the connections and all that, build and I can share with my brother here the big vision, then you can see how we can reach out to many other people. But I really want to see if we can build more relationship between Bahrain and Africa. This would be a good opportunity. Let's build connection with the young Africans. The young Bahrainians, you need young Africans just as young Africans need you so that we can cement the relationship. We tear down the borders in our heart but open up for the spirit of care for one another. So I think this is a good opportunity. Thank you so much for asking that question.
I think if I may build on that, and I say that in any event or almost every event where I speak as representative of the Bahrain Foundation for Dialogue, it's all of our responsibility. Just as Victor said, if you don't participate, the others take over. It's all of our responsibilities to make a change. And the bare minimum you can do is if you see some dirt on the street, pick it up and put it in the trash. That everybody has a responsibility. It can be this small or this huge, but it's everyone's responsibility to make a change. Brother, thank you so much. Really, really appreciate it. Thank you for coming down.
I appreciate the opportunity. Thanks for inviting me and thanks for making me meet the wonderful people.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
We have a small token
God bless
of appreciation for you. A small token, yeah, that's not just a small token.
Okay, I'll carry so many.
Yeah, we can. طيب وين تبينا؟ Okay, well let's go here. He says he doesn't want us behind the screen.
Yeah, I get something tall, so.